food on our plates, and the shops and the labels don't always tell you the whole story.
Think you're getting a bargain, and you're not really. They're just encouraging you to buy more of a product when you don't need to.
Whether you're staying in or going out, you've told us you can feel ripped off by the promises made for what you eat and what you pay for it.
What really winds me up, I suppose, is the price of so-called healthy food and compared with the unhealthy stuff. The unhealthy stuff seems to be so much cheaper.
From claims that just don't stack up to the secrets behind the packaging, we'll uncover the truth about Britain's food so that you can be sure that you're getting what you expect at the right price. Your food, your money. This is Rip Off Britain. Well, hello and welcome to Rip Off Britain, the series of battles on your behalf to make sure that whatever you're buying and wherever you're buying it, you get exactly what you expect. Now, when it comes to our food, the place where we still do most of our buying remains the supermarket. So it's those big name stores that we have very firmly in our sights today.
Very much so, because supermarkets are such a fundamental part of our lives. You know, every year between them, they account for more than a third of all the money we spend in shops.
Whoa.
And they do go to great lengths to win our loyalty, don't they? But, you know, despite all of their claims about low prices and offers that simply can't be beaten, some of you have said that you're not always sure that when you leave the shop you really have had the best deal.
Well, at Rip Off Britain, our team has been busy going through all the emails and letters you've sent us on the subject, and we've been pounding the aisles, so that next time you're at the checkout, whether it's in-store or online, you can be more confident that you're really getting your money's worth.
Coming up, the bananas out of the bag. We unravel why the big stores charge so much more for bananas that come pre-packed than for the ones sold loose.
I thought of myself as a savvy shopper, and I was very shocked to see that the pre-packed bananas were costing over 80% more than the loose bananas.
And could our trusty bags for life be carrying bugs for life? We've been at the lab testing for the nasties said to be lurking inside.
You can't tell by looking at a bag whether or not it's hygienically clean. That means you probably have to assume that most bags could be contaminated.
Now, we munch our way through 5 billion of these every year, but while one may seem pretty much like any other, they're certainly not the same when it comes to the price. And one Rip Off Britain viewer wrote to us, curious to discover the answer to a question that you might have wondered about as well. And that is, why do pre-packed bananas that come in a bag like this typically cost more than the loose ones that are sold like this? Are you just paying for the bag, or is there actually a difference in what you're getting? Well, to find out, we've followed the journey of one of our favourite foods, not quite from its source, but from where most bananas go next. On average, each of us eats 100 bananas every year, and Paul Gates from Warwick pretty much always has a bunch in his supermarket trolley. Until recently, that bunch would typically have been the kind that comes pre-bagged rather than loose. But then Paul did some sums and started to wonder if he was paying over the odds.
Normally, when I go to the supermarket, it's so easy just to grab a bag of pre-packed fruit or vegetables. So one time, I thought, I'll put them on the scales.
Paul's pre-packed bananas were priced at £1, but when he compared the cost with the equivalent weight of loose bananas, he found that his nicely packaged fruit was costing him almost twice as much, because those loose ones were only 55p.
A bit of a shock, a bit of an eye-opener. I did ask the managers in the supermarket, who were as amazed as I was. It just made me think that with all the apples and potatoes and peppers and tomatoes, how much money was I spending more buying them pre-packed for my convenience?
At all the big four supermarkets, you may well occasionally find some fruit and veg that is in fact cheaper when you buy it pre-packed. But as a general rule, you'll usually pay quite a bit more for packaged fruit and veg than you would if buying them loose. And that was definitely the case on the day that we checked. At Sainsbury's, for example, we found one loose Royal Gala apple cost 29p, But a pack of 4 cost £2, so that's 21 pence more for each apple. An Asda kiwi fruit was 24p loose, but a ready-to-eat pack of 4 was priced at £1.50, which meant each one worked out at 37p, almost a third more. At Morrison's, one red onion would cost 7p, but a packet of 6 would cost 49p, so that's a whole onion less in a pre-packed bag. And at Tesco, a bag of 3 onions cost £1, but each one loose was just 17 pence. So buying these 3 that way would be half the price of the bag. And at all 4 stores, just as Paul had found, those pre-packed bananas were around twice as much as their loose counterparts, sometimes even more. And while you might expect to pay a few pennies extra for the bag or the packaging, Paul's probably not alone in wondering why there's typically a much bigger price difference than that.
I thought of myself as a savvy shopper, and I was very shocked to see that the pre-packed bananas were costing over 80% more than the loose bananas. I wonder if there's any kind of a reason.
A good question, Paul. Well, we've brought him to a place where he should be able to get the answer. This is the largest single banana ripening facility in the UK, where new deliveries arrive from across the world every day.
Okay then, Paul, as you can see, we've got 2 different types of bananas here. We've got some that are being pre-packed in the tropics. We've got some there that are loose.
And Paul soon hears the first reason why pre-packed bananas end up being more expensive. They've already cost more to ship to the UK than their loose counterparts, because those plastic bags take up valuable space in each box. Around 25 to 30% of the price you pay in a supermarket is thanks to the cost of shipping bananas here from around the world. So the more bags, the greater the shipping cost. And that's before they've even arrived at the factory.
Are all these bananas from exactly the same plantation?
No, they're not. No. This fruit here has come from Costa Rica.
Right.
This fruit over here has come from Ecuador. This fruit will go straight to the ripening room for ripening to get them to the yellow stage. So we'll go and have a look at those now.
20 million bananas pass through this facility every single week. Because it takes 2 or 3 weeks to transport them to the UK, they're picked and shipped when they're still green and ripened in the factory.
Okay, Paul, here we are in one of our banana ripening rooms.
I thought the sunshine ripened bananas.
No, unfortunately we don't get enough sunshine and climate in the UK to ripen them naturally, so we have to create artificial means to do it. So we'll bring these bananas in here and we'll hold them in here for about 6 days. When they arrive to us, they are stone hard green. We'll want to ripen those up to something to what you're used to seeing on the shelf in the shop.
After they've ripened, the loose bunches head out of the factory straight to the supermarket's own distribution centres. Meanwhile, the bananas destined to be sold pre-packed come here to be checked, sorted, packed and labelled.
This is our pack house, and we'll be either packing fruit in bags from loose, or we'll be labelling bags that have already been packed abroad, or if the quality's inconsistent, we will be sorting out quality problems that might have happened, because you've got to remember they've come a long way and things do happen.
Which leads to another factor in the higher price we pay for bagged bananas. If the team spot quality issues, they have to make up new bags from loose bananas, so that's another extra cost. And then there's the time spent boxing up the bagged bananas ready for the supermarkets.
So, you obviously employ a lot of people here.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We've got a lot of people. We enhance the product that's coming in the door to the one that's going out. And they have to be paid for. Loose bananas, when they finish their ripening, they'll go straight out of the ripening room, straight on the lorry to the customer. None of these people even touch them. So it's a very streamlined process for loose, but compared with pre-packs.
It's clear that pre-packed bananas are just more complicated and more costly to process. But those bags do have their benefits.
On the plus side though, a pre-packed banana does offer better shelf life. Yes, the pre-packed banana you've got in a plastic bag, it's got a nice moist atmosphere, it stays better looking for longer.
But whether that makes the extra cost worth it is up to you.
Thank you very much for showing me around your factory. It's been very, very interesting.
No, it's been a pleasure for me.
So, after being shown around a banana factory for the last couple of hours, I've got a better understanding of the price difference between loose pack bananas and pre-packed bananas. Now, if there's one thing I really fancy now, it's a banana.
But the difference in price that we pay for a loose and a bagged banana is influenced by more than just the packaging. In fact, bananas are so popular in the UK, they can be on the front line of supermarket price wars.
Strategically, they're very important to supermarkets, and they tend to invest in keeping prices low on those bananas. Most consumers end up buying packaged bananas because they're convenient. It's easy to just pick up a bag, you know how much you're going to pay for, you don't have to weigh the bunch, there's no surprise at the till.
And though you may not have noticed, overall we get a good deal on our bananas, which can sometimes be a loss leader for the supermarkets.
Supermarkets really have invested a lot in low and stable banana prices. So even though production costs have gone up quite significantly, that has not been reflected in retail prices. In most retailers over the past 2 years certainly, the price of a kilogram of loose bananas has been pretty stable at about 68p, and that has been regardless of what's happened around production costs.
When we spoke to the Big Four supermarkets, they reiterated what we'd seen for ourselves at the factory. That the packaging is designed to preserve the shelf life of the product, helping with extra ripening and extra protection. But despite the additional costs that inevitably brings, the stores stress their bananas are priced competitively, with options for customers who like the convenience of pre-packaged fruit. As for Paul, well, although he now better understands why he has to pay more for a pre-packed banana than he would for a loose one, he knows which kind he'll be buying from now on.
I'm going to be a bit more careful and a bit more mean with my money.
Now, as we've reported before, it can be quite a tricky business comparing the price of different products in the supermarket to work out which is the best value. Not least because the shops themselves don't always make it easy. Well, since we first looked at this, plenty more of you have been in touch with us. And it seems that at one big-name supermarket in particular, there's another problem with the way products are priced. They don't always match what you actually get in the packet, and that makes it really hard for you to work out what's the best deal. It's easy for shoppers to feel bamboozled by all the different words and numbers when they're trying to compare prices in the supermarket and work out what's the best deal. When we did a test last year, it proved horrendously complicated figuring out which products worked out cheapest.
I can't find a way to look.
It is pretty well impossible to work that one out. That's per piece of shredded wheat, and that one is per 100 grams, isn't it?
There's not enough information on the packet, is there? I can't see how you can figure out when one's giving you price per 100 grams and the other one is giving you price per individual product.
But it did seem then that greater clarity was on the way. After pressure from the government, all 10 of Britain's major supermarkets pledged to use consistent pricing systems across similar products to help customers compare like for like more easily. So, a year on, we've been back to the supermarkets to see if what was promised has actually been delivered. But guess what? Comparing the price of quite a few products turned out to be as baffling as ever. Take this bumper 14-bag multi-pack of crisps. On the day we checked, it wasn't easy to calculate whether it worked out as better value than the 6-bag multi-pack on sale in the same store. Because when we looked at the pricing information on the supermarket shelf,
the details for the smaller pack were displayed per 100 grams, but for the other, it was for each of the individual bags. Equally confusing, the price for these biscuits was displayed per each biscuit in a pack of 16, but in a pack of 8, it was shown per 100 grams. And you've been telling us about other ways the information on the price labels can leave you scratching your head in bemusement. When Russell Coates from Bradford goes to the shops, he likes to know he's getting value for money.
The typical Yorkshire man, I'm looking for the best value when I go shopping. I don't actually go for the cheapest one all the time, but sometimes you get a good bargain when you look around.
Russell wrote to us after making a surprising discovery when shopping for meat in his local Tesco to make his sandwiches for work.
I picked the meat up at first and felt the weight of it, and I thought it felt a bit empty. I thought they'd packed it wrong. And then when I checked the shelf edge label and I checked the weight at the back of the packet, they were completely different sizes. I was getting a pack of meat that was not stated as the right size. It was underweight.
Russell found that the weight of the Tesco Everyday Value ham stated on the shelf wasn't the same as the actual weight printed on the pack. The product itself displayed a weight of 364 grams of ham, but the price on the shelf was for 400 grams, which as far as Russell was concerned meant he was getting 36 grams of ham less than he expected for his money. And when he looked at a few of the other labels, he spotted exactly the same thing.
I found 3 others that were underweight, that were quoting a certain size in weight, but they were actually selling less meat in the pack than they were.
Among the other examples Russell found was Tesco's cooked ham. On the shelf, it was labelled as £4 for 425 grams, but the pack showed it was only 400 grams. Then there was this Tesco Value chicken roll. The label on the shelf said it was 55p for a 300-gram pack, but the pack itself said it contained just 227 grams. That's nearly 25% less meat for the same money. Russell wasn't happy that, as he saw it, he was being shortchanged, because once he worked out the maths, the difference between the weights shown on the packets and what it said on the shelf label meant he could be losing up to 23p per product.
Should be actually paying for the actual amount of meat you're getting, not getting charged 14-15p extra on packs of meat.
And consumer expert Jasmine Birtles thinks that the supermarkets could do more to avoid this kind of confusion.
I can see how Russell would find this annoying because, okay, we're not talking big money, but after a while these little bits can mount up. There's the supermarkets going on about how they check the prices every day and they price match. Well, how hard can it be then to check that the price and weight on the label on the shelf matches the product?
To see if Russell's experience was a one-off, we went to a different Tesco store in Manchester to check the prices and weights on some of the labels. And in this branch, most of the meats that Russell had seen labelled incorrectly also had the wrong information displayed, including the ham that had aroused his suspicions in the first place. But we didn't just stop with the meats. On the day that we visited, across the store we found 44 products where the weight on the shelf label didn't match what was on the product. Foods as varied as raw scallops, iced chorizo and New York cheesecake didn't have quite the weight that the label suggested. But as it turned out, it wasn't all bad news. With 11 products, the mismatch worked in the customer's favour, and you'd actually get more for your money. But don't think that this just happens at Tesco. We checked out the other big 3 supermarkets and found 1 mislabelled product in Morrison's, 4 in Sainsbury's and 18 in Asda. When we asked the supermarkets to explain how this could happen, all of them said they worked hard to make sure the information in stores is clear, accurate and consistent so that customers can make informed decisions. But with so many products, mistakes can occasionally happen. And Tesco added that while it's disappointed that these errors have occurred, it's working closely with the stores in question to ensure all labelling is correct and up to date. And Jasmine Birtles has some sympathy with that.
Supermarkets have a lot of products, things are changing all the time, prices are changing, sometimes on a daily basis. So I can see that they do have a lot to keep on top of. But at the same time, they have some pretty sophisticated technology to deal with this. And I think if they have the will to price match and make sure that things are accurate, I think they can do it.
As for Russell, he'll be making doubly sure he checks the labels and the packets from now on, so he knows for certain that whatever it is he's buying, he's getting as much of it as he expects.
Well, for people going shopping, I think they seem to spend a bit more time just checking what they're buying and checking the label, making sure they're getting the right sort of item in the pack.
Still to come on Rip Off Britain, supermarkets' home deliveries put to the test. Will your food last longer if you've ordered it online or if you've picked it in store yourself?
I'm just going to look through them now and see what dates are on the products.
By the end of 2015, supermarkets in England will have joined those in Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland and lots of other countries too by charging shoppers for all carrier bags. Well, to many of us that won't come as such a shock because we've already invested in the bigger, stronger, reusable bags for life that the big stores have been encouraging us to use for a long time now. You may well have diligently been using the same ones week in, week out for months or even years. But therein lies the problem, because it turns out that those trusty bags for life might be carrying more than just your shopping.
The world is crawling with nasty bugs like E. coli, Salmonella and Listeria that can make us very ill indeed. Some of them even live on the very food we buy from the supermarkets. Because these bacteria like to lurk on surfaces and in places that aren't clean very often, they can easily spread. And it's been claimed that one place they can really thrive is inside that eco-friendly alternative to the plastic bag, the bag for life. Since they were introduced by Waitrose in 1997, millions of us have invested in at least one of these reusable bags. And more of us are likely to do the same once the supermarkets in England join those in the rest of the UK in charging for disposable plastic bags from October this year.
We've got 2 bags for life, which we use for either shopping or washing, for getting the washing out the washing machine with, because they're waterproof.
Yes, we have some at home. They're in the boot of the car.
If I'm carrying shoes to work or anything like that, I will use my bags for life for that.
Oh, I love them. They're handy, they're convenient, they're environmentally friendly.
Even the sturdiest bag for life won't literally last a lifetime. But many of us do use them for months or even years and rarely, if ever, clean them out. And that means any bugs living in those bags are going to stay there undisturbed. They'll often have come from the food we bought and dropped into the bag in the first place. Which is why microbiologists like Dr. Lisa Ackley worry that our bags for life could be transporting more than just the ingredients for our dinner.
Bags for life are a great idea because obviously they're reducing the waste that we have, but we just need to be aware that sometimes they could be contaminated with things such as E. coli or Campylobacter because of the previous use. And of course we don't just use bags for life for food, we also put all sorts of things into bags for life. We use them for our sports kit, football boots, walking boots, all sorts of things.
Several studies in both the UK and America have found that instances of food poisoning have gone up after ordinary plastic bags were outlawed. And in a recent test carried out by a Scottish newspaper, almost 50% of a small sample of Bags for Life tested positive for potentially dangerous bugs.
There are plenty of bacteria around in the supermarket, so for example potatoes and leeks and other root vegetables will have soil on them, which means that they could have E. coli. Equally, studies have found that chickens have very high levels of Campylobacter, so we could find at least 60 to 70% of raw chickens could be contaminated. And we found also that the packaging that they're stored in may also be contaminated.
Washing fruit and veg removes the bacteria, and cooking chicken thoroughly kills the Campylobacter that naturally exists in around 70% of supermarket chickens. But if meat juices from one of those chickens leaks into a bag where ready-to-eat food like fruit is kept and isn't washed, then you open yourself up to the risk of infection.
When you pack your bags at the checkout, you're putting potentially contaminated food into your shopping bags. And of course, if they're bags for life, then that means that the next time you use them, then you could have contamination from your previous shopping still in the bag.
Oh, look at it. Oh.
I'm shocked. Yeah, where are they coming from? The bacteria.
So how worried should we be about the bugs in our bags? To find out, we asked 10 shoppers to surrender their bags for life so we could send them to a lab. Dr. Ackley has agreed to take a swab from each of our bags and test them for common bacteria found on supermarket food. Of course, it's only a small sample, but nevertheless, it'll give a useful snapshot of what, if anything, we're carting around in all our reusable bags.
When you're shopping, you could actually imagine a journey of the germ, really, from the packaging, with contaminated packaging where you may have Campylobacter, or from raw vegetables where you might have E. coli. And you could follow that through, because it basically, as soon as you've touched those packages, you've got contamination on your hands. And of course, if you don't wash your hands when you go home, you could be taking all that contamination back to your own kitchen.
So Dr. Ackley is collecting our bags for life together and packaging them up in sterile bags, ready to be tested for what they might be hiding.
What we're going to do is test the bags to see what levels of contamination they have, so how many bacteria there are on the bags.
Whilst it's almost impossible to know for sure if your bag for life made you ill, official bodies like the Food Standards Agency agree that bacteria from raw meat and fish could contaminate any ready-to-eat food that's put in the same bag. But there's a scientist who could have the solution. Paul Morris works for a company that specialises in making materials that stop bugs from growing. Following conversations with the FSA, his team came up with a new version of the Bag for Life that, if released onto the market, might just reduce the risk of contamination altogether.
I think there's a high risk with the Bags for Life at the moment because people aren't aware of it, and you only need very small levels of the bacteria to actually cause you a problem. What we're looking to do is to lower the risk. So if there is bacteria there, our product will permanently get rid of the bacteria on the surface.
Paul's company has created an improved Bag for Life that includes a small layer of silver designed to prevent any bacteria from growing on it, reducing in one fell swoop the risk of bugs being passed from bag to person and so on.
You wouldn't let your children play with a raw chicken breast, but if it's in a trolley, people just assume it's safe. You either disinfectant the bag after every use, which people don't tend to do, people like to be lazy, or why not have an antibacterial Bag for Life, which costs a few pence more than a normal bag, and actually gives you that protection then, that you're not going to spread bacteria from one shopping trip to another.
Any solution that keeps our bags free from bugs has got to be good news. But were the Bags for Life we tested as bad as we feared? The results are back from the lab, and it seems that this time at least there's no need to panic.
Well, we've got the results back from the laboratory, and whilst the results are not as alarming as some of the other studies that are being carried out, we nevertheless did find some bacteria in the bags, but at fairly low quantities and nothing that would really cause me great concern. However, it does show that the bags are not sterile and they will be used for food, and so that means that if there is any contamination in them, it could be passed on from one food to another.
None of our bags contained any bacteria that could actually cause any serious illnesses, and the fact that we did find bacteria in them isn't really surprising. After all, bacteria are everywhere. But it does show that there's the potential for contamination.
It's always very difficult to know where somebody has actually become contaminated, whether it was a bag, whether it was contamination from picking up a packet of chicken, whether it was preparing chicken in the home or failing to wash their hands. Often it's very difficult to trace back individual cases of food poisoning and determine where the fault actually arose.
And of course it doesn't help that you won't be able to tell what secrets your bag might be harbouring just by looking at it.
So you can see this bag's a little bit grubby, but it wouldn't strike you as a really, really dirty bag. But yet this was the dirtiest one in terms of the microbiology. This bag was the second dirtiest bag in terms of bacteria that we found on it. And actually, it looks pretty clean. So I can't actually see any evidence of dirt on there. So what this actually means is you can't tell by looking at a bag whether or not it's hygienically clean. That means you probably have to assume that most bags could be contaminated.
And while not all the bacteria that may be in your bag for life will be harmful, Lisa has some simple tips to make sure you don't get any unwelcome surprises from the ones that are.
I'd recommend, if you're using a bag for life, to mark one up with a big R on it. This is what a lot of people do that I know. Maybe they're a bit peculiar, but that's what they do. A big R, and that says raw meat only. So all the raw meat goes into one bag. And as long as we understand that we're picking up bacteria on our hands and we take the appropriate action, which is wash our hands before we eat, then really we are going to be quite safe.
An ever-increasing number of us do our weekly shop without ever leaving the house, because internet grocery shopping has transformed the lives of literally millions of people. And while personally I still prefer to have a good old look around what's on the supermarket shelves, there's no doubt that by doing the shopping online, well, it's invaluable for many people. But you know, nothing's perfect. And over the years, we've noticed a steady trickle of emails complaining about the short shelf life of some of the food that you've had delivered, pointing out that the weekly shop ordered online hasn't lasted anywhere near the full week. And that's led to some of you even wondering if it's a policy of the big chains to send the food that has the longest sell-by dates to the shops and the shortest sell-by dates to those shopping from home. So to see if there's any truth in that whatsoever, we've done some shopping of our own.
The traditional big weekly shop for many of us is no longer done quite as traditionally as it once was.
Now Iceland's special freezer vans bring home the bacon, the ice cream.
In the 1990s, home delivery took its hold and set to change supermarket shopping forever.
Iceland's coming home.
Brilliant.
Since then, an increasing number of us have chosen to have our shopping delivered direct to our front door. It's said that a fifth of us now order our weekly groceries online from the comfort of our own home.
Having your groceries delivered to you is really quick and easy.
And for those of you who don't like trudging around a busy supermarket, the convenience of having the same products dropped at your door really does appeal.
I do my grocery shopping online every week.
You know, it just makes life easier instead of going in and out the aisle and picking stuff out, carrying it home. If everything gets delivered to you, it's a lot easier, isn't it?
It's more convenient for me to have the delivery come in and for me to collect it from delivery van and just have my shopping ready.
I can shop for exactly what I need. I'm not going to be swayed by anything on the aisles.
But as online shopping has grown in popularity, so too has the number of people contacting us to say that they don't think it's all it's cracked up to be. Because when you rely on somebody else picking your potatoes from the fresh food aisle, things can go wrong. Late or cancelled deliveries, the wrong items being delivered, and the occasional strange substitution are all things that we've heard complaints about.
There was some problems with them substituting certain items that I would never have bought myself.
Things wouldn't come, you know, like they'd replace it without telling me. Sometimes the deliveries would be late. Often food come and it's bruised with your fruits, or you've not received the full offers.
One particular criticism that crops up repeatedly is to do with the expiry date on fresh produce, which some of you claim can often be close to its limit, even as soon as the food is delivered. Warren Copland from Oxford got in touch after becoming frustrated that despite meticulously planning his weekly shop, some of the groceries he pays to have delivered won't actually last the week. He claims that in one delivery, 7 fresh items including broccoli, fish cakes and minced beef had best before dates that were just 1 or 2 days ahead, leaving him very unhappy about how much had to be eaten long before the week had ended. It's a suggestion that we've heard before, with some of you even wondering if stores deliberately distribute goods with the longest shelf lives to the stores, leaving those with dates closer to expiry for the online shops. So we thought we'd do some online shopping of our own. We placed orders for 11 items of food
that you find in a typical weekly shop from the websites of 5 leading supermarket chains. We chose Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, Morrison's and Waitrose, all of it to be delivered 2 days later. On the day of delivery, we went to a local branch of each of the same stores to try and buy exactly the same things. Now, where we could exactly match the items, we were able to handpick them ourselves and deliberately route around to find the ones with the longest shelf life. But with our online groceries, we were stuck with whatever dates the stores had chosen for us. So will there be much of a difference?
See you later.
It's time to find out. Our Tesco order is the first to arrive. Tesco has been delivering food for 18 years and is the UK's largest online grocer, making up more than half the online food shopping that's done in the UK.
When the driver delivered these, he told me that there were no substitutions, so I'm just going to look through them now and see what dates are on the products.
Tesco performed best in our experiment, delivering only one product with a shorter shelf life, but the rest had either the same expiry dates or an even longer shelf life. But other products from the Sainsbury's delivery, 4 had expiry dates that were shorter than our in-store shop. Only one ordered online, the salmon, had a longer shelf life. Things were a bit more evenly matched at Morrison's, where only 2 items from our online order had a shorter shelf life than the ones bought in-store. Morrison's uses Ocado to deliver its shopping, the world's largest specialist online grocer, which has no physical stores of its own. Ocado also delivers Waitrose products, but Waitrose has its own online delivery service as well, and it's grown by more than 25% in the past year. Even so, our Waitrose delivery seems to have a few problems.
So the Waitrose driver told me that there was a couple of substitutions. I didn't have to accept them if I didn't want to. So looking at this, a bag appears to have not made it off the truck. Not sure what's happened there. We've got a number that we can call, and we're going to do that tomorrow and find out what's happened to it. So we're just going to check what we've got for now.
This time, we only ended up with 7 items we could directly compare. But of those, 3 of the ones we bought in the shop would last longer than the equivalents we had delivered. 2 whole days more in the case of the chicken. From the online order, only the grapes had a better shelf life. But the good news is that when we called Waitrose the next day about the items that hadn't arrived, we were instantly given a refund. Finally, Asda, a store whose delivery service has attracted criticism in the press for its policy of dropping off goods at what they judge to be your front door, which has reportedly included communal entrances to blocks of flats.
So the Asda driver told me there were a few substitutions, said I could reject them if I wanted to. I've got some mushrooms in here. I'm not sure what they're substituting yet. Instead of 500 grams of grapes, they've sent us some mushrooms. That's a really confusing choice. I don't understand how mushrooms would be a substitute for grapes.
Me neither, but whilst the substitution wasn't quite what we wanted, when it came to shelf life, again there wasn't much in it. Of those we could compare, 2 products from the store would last slightly longer than the equivalents bought online, but the other 6 were exactly the same.
So looking at these products, generally they are the same as what we could get in store, aside from the broccoli and the chicken, which we managed to get a little longer shelf life on them. It's the same.
So while our test was obviously just a snapshot from a handful of stores, we certainly didn't come across any evidence to suggest that there's a conspiracy or deliberate policy among supermarkets to send food with the longest dates to their stores and keep the ones with shorter shelf lives for home deliveries. In fact, when we contacted the supermarkets, some of them explained the opposite is true. Sainsbury's, Waitrose and Asda all told us that their staff are trained to pick goods with the longest shelf lives possible. Sainsbury's say they also point out shorter life products to customers on the doorstep. And if you're not happy with the dates, it's a no-quibble refund. As Asda and Morrison's also said you won't be charged for an item with a date that you're not satisfied with. And Morrison's went on to say that in common with most of the other big stores, its receipts clearly list the lifespan of each product, so customers know how long they'll last and can plan their meals for the week ahead. It also said that stock used for online deliveries is kept entirely separate from the stock sent to stores. Meanwhile, Waitrose added that with its deliveries, customers can add specific preferences to an order. For example, if you particularly like green bananas. Well, it's clearly a much more complex business than you might have realised, and likely to get increasingly sophisticated as more of us commit to shopping this way in the future.
Online grocery shopping seems to be a winner.
I'll certainly stick with online shopping.
I'm going to stick to like online shopping, and that it just saves a lot of time. And
our supermarkets are chock full of fresh foods. But when it comes to food, the word fresh doesn't have one simple meaning. In fact, there is no legal definition that covers all the food we buy. And the use of terms like freshly picked and freshly prepared can muddy the waters even further. But there's no doubt that modern distribution and storage methods have significantly increased the lifespan of our food, which means that some of the fresh stuff we buy may have been around longer than you'd think, as Dr. Lisa Ackley explains.
People are sometimes quite surprised about how long the food has actually been on the shelf since it was processed or packed. So we have a lot more things at our fingertips to extend the shelf life of food, and that can give us some quite surprising results.
Take, for instance, the apple. Traditionally, some freshly harvested apples had to be eaten straight away, whilst others could be stored right through the winter. But now, there's a much wider choice right through the year.
Keepers or eaters? These days, even the eaters can be kept for a long time because of technological advances.
So, if an apple, or indeed any other fruit and veg, is described as fresh, it doesn't mean it was harvested yesterday, just that it hasn't been processed. But the same rules don't apply to everything, and even a fresh egg can be older than you might assume. So how can you tell exactly when your egg was laid? Well, there is a simple way to work it out. There can't be any more than 28 days between when an egg was laid and the best before date usually printed on it. So if you subtract 28 days from that date, your egg won't be any older than that.
So this egg was laid 11 days ago, and it's got another 17 days of shelf life.
The only exception is if an egg is described as extra fresh, in which case the law says it must be sold within 9 days of being laid. But that's one of only a handful of situations where the law is explicit on how the word fresh should be used. Other examples are meat and fish, where fresh specifically means the products have never been frozen. But regardless of how long it's been since something was first picked, packed or produced, there is a time-honoured method that canny shoppers have long used to make sure that they're selecting the freshest food from the supermarket shelves.
We've no way of telling how long food has been on the shelves for, because it doesn't say when it was actually produced or slaughtered or manufactured in a factory. But what you can find is that the foods at the back of the shelf will have the longest shelf life, so always read the label.
Here at Rip Off Britain, we're always ready to investigate more of your stories on any subject. You can write to us at Rip Off Britain, BBC Key House, Media City UK, Salford, M50 2QH. Or you can send us an email to ripoffbritain@bbc.co.uk. Remember that the Rip Off team is ready and waiting to investigate your stories. Well, as you know, the supermarkets are experts at convincing us all to spend money with them. And sometimes, as in the case of those pre-packed bananas, in convincing us to pay a higher price for not always that much extra in return. But although they may occasionally get themselves in a muddle over prices, there's no doubt that overall, and I think we'd all agree, we would probably be much worse off without them.
Though, of course, all those constant price wars between them do help to keep at least some of our shopping costs down. But, that doesn't mean that they can take our custom for granted. No way. So do keep your supermarket stories coming into us. And if their great deals don't quite stack up, then again, please do let us know, because I'm pretty sure that this is a subject we're going to be looking at again and again.
And don't forget, we're keen to hear from you on any subject, not just food. Our team is already working on the next series of Rip Off Britain programmes, so do please get in touch and tell us what you'd like us to investigate. You never know, might be your letter or email we'll be looking at next time. But for now, thanks for joining us, and from all of us here, goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Getting your money back late from BBC One, the show is to come in to collect over a couple of faulty vehicles at 11. Then Double Trouble with Water Everywhere when a leak springs up. Cowboys and Angels with Tommy Walsh is at 11.45. Next, join the bidding.